Hey, welcome back to the Infamous Podcast. This is Brian.
This is Darryl.
And this is episode 458, Robots, Thinking Machines, and Superman. Darryl, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I am well also.
Well, I take that back. I'm as well as can be without after a Tuesday without a Superman and Lois.
Yeah. That's the sad part right now, for sure. But things are good. The website is up, is back up. We're good to go. We shouldn't have any disruptions in service again. And you all should notice that the site is probably a little bit faster. But yeah, thank you for your patience. For those of you who just got to listen to last week's episode yesterday, thank you. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's not like other than what we're talking about, there's not a ton to talk about right now.
Yeah, it's kind of in that. I don't know. I will say, because we're wrapping up, 2024. I've been looking at my list of movies to watch that came out in 2024, just because, as I've told you several times, I've been thoroughly disappointed with the movies of 2024.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. There's been a decent amount I've liked, but there hasn't any been that knocked my socks off like we've had in years past. So again, I have a list of probably like 12 movies, stuff like Furiosa, Inside Out 2. I mean, there's a Beetlejuice, things that I want to watch just to see. Like, okay, one, I want to see them, but two, there's no reason not to now that they're streaming and I don't have to pay for them. So
I have added to that list throughout the year, because remember at the beginning of the year I kind of went through and put a bunch of stuff on there.
Right.
The only ones that I haven't watched that were on the list is Civil War, Rebel Moon Part 2, Quiet Place Day 1, and Kraven the Hunter.
Yes, Quiet Place Day 1 I still haven't watched that either.
But it's on Paramount, so I mean, I'm going to definitely watch it before the end of the year. And then we're going to go see Kraven, I think, on Saturday night, maybe Friday night.
Yeah, so, I'm not sure when I'm gonna see it, but hopefully that's entertaining. At least Venom: Last Dance, because that just came out today, I believe, on streaming, and I wanted to see that.
Yeah, I mean, to buy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely watch that before the end of the year. That was fun.
Oh yeah, you went to go see it, right?
Yeah, because we got the Venom fuck bucket. So I mean, popcorn bucket. No, I was right the first time.
Extra butter.
I just bought some microwave popcorn at Target when Haley and I were just there, and I bought the double butter. That has nothing to do with the Venom fuck bucket, but it was just so, yeah.
Oh gosh.
But yeah. So anyway, yeah. Cool. All right, let's. You want to just hop right into it?
Yeah, let's get it on.
As what was the guy from the
Mills Lane?
Let's get it on.
Yeah.
All right. So this past weekend was GalaxyCon up in Columbus. It is my first GalaxyCon. They were gracious enough to give us press passes, and special shout out to Brian and Jim from the Mid-Ohio Jedi Order. One, go follow them on YouTube. Just look up Mid-Ohio Jedi Order. You'll get their site or their page. So make sure you subscribe, start watching the videos, especially if you're into lightsabers. They're the channel to go to. Plus all the Star Wars stuff that goes along with it. Yeah, so it was a great time. It's the last time I went to a really big con like this was Star Wars Celebration, so it was nice to kind of be at a real show. No shade thrown at the Cincinnati Comic Expo, but it's just, it's not the same level because there's not as many different fandoms here as there were at this one. And it's just not as big, it's just not as, it's not, the grandeur isn't there. So, plus when you walk in the front door, it's in front of the big Arnold statue. So, yeah. So, highlights, got to finally connect in person with the guys from Mid-Ohio. Got to finally connect in person with Drunk 3PO, which was awesome. Jay was great. He's a busy man, and he's doing a lot of cool shit. Make sure you guys go check out Drunk 3PO and all of his stuff and his comic book that's on Rip Ascend. Got to talk to Jana Varney for a little bit when I was getting an autograph for Haley. She's the voice of Korra. She was amazing, so nice, so sweet. And then got a chance to talk with Phil Dunster for a little bit when Haley was getting his autograph. Super nice guy. And then got to meet Gina Carano, who was super sweet, super nice, super beautiful. And shout out to her assistant Tabitha. You're right, Tabitha. She does look like you. So... But yeah, you should have gone.
Again, it was one of those things that when you said you were going, I think I told you that where you said you were going this week or not this week. I'm sorry, last week. I was like, I didn't say. I don't think I said it in a text, but when I read that you were going, I kind of had that blinking, like, what is he talking about? The GalaxyCon. Oh, that. Yeah.
Oh, that. So. Well, you had a badge, and it got given to the guys from Mid-Ohio because they needed the third badge. So, anyway, you can go next year because next year it's December 5th through the 7th.
Oh, right. So, is it first week of December every year?
I guess so,
or just like the last couple of years?
I don't know. This is the first time I went. I know they've done it for a while now, and it travels around and everything. So there is that, but. Definitely going to try and go up again next year. It was awesome. Maybe and just stay all weekend. Who knows? So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was really captivated by what you said about you and Jay / Drunk 3PO talking for so long, and
it was great.
Again, it's one thing to talk to somebody for 5-10 minutes. I mean. But when you're talking to somebody for 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, whatever it may be, like that, like getting over that 15-minute mark, you can get a lot of insight into a person, a lot more insight.
And like, we've had like a ton of interactions on social media and things like that. I'm lucky enough to be one of the few people he follows. So that's cool. And yeah, he's a sweetheart. He's super nice. He's got so much cool stuff going on. It's like everything that he does is for other people. And that's why, like, go check out Rip Ascend, and it's under, oh God, what's it called?
What is that? Yeah.
But it's called, oh God, the Achromatic Chronicles. So Achromatic Chronicles Green is live now. And then Blue comes out. I don't know when Blue comes out. I don't know if Blue's out yet, but Blue's out too. So Green and Blue are both out. So for $70 you can get both of them. And it ends, the pre-order ends January 7th. So far he's sold just under 2,100 books. So that's pretty awesome. And he's reached 151% of his sales goal. I tell you what, cool. I am going to put the link in the show notes.
In the description of the show notes.
All right, there we go. All right, but yeah, so yeah, again, thank you GalaxyCon for the badges. It was amazing. Hopefully we can get them again next year. Hopefully I can go up for all 3 days because I know on Saturday I missed a bunch of wrestling stuff, which kind of made me sad. And I missed my chance to meet Chris Statlander. But AEW had some cool stuff going on, so. Oh,
Sigh/tears.
I know, right? A couple things. I was kind of sad about a few things. One, I kind of like bumped into Scott Steiner, sorry, and I was sad to be taller than him.
That's hilarious.
I mean, I just like because he's like such this bigger than life guy, this bigger than life like wrestler. Just Big Papa Pump. It was just kind of like, oh, like he's larger than life for sure. He's just not actually larger than life, And it's not like I'm super tall. I mean, I'm a little over 6 foot, but like still, it was just funny. Jake the Snake Roberts, I didn't talk to him or but walked by his booth a few times. He looked fantastic, which is great. I would have liked to have gotten in with Zach Levi to get an autograph or something, but he was just swamped, which was awesome to see after like all the stuff that's gone down with him after, what he did during the election and supporting Donald Trump and things like that because of RFK Jr. So it was really cool to see his line just packed.
I've always liked him as an actor.
Oh yeah,
Chuck, of course.
Chuck is a top 10 show for me.
I still need to. Did I? I'm trying to think if I finished Chuck. I thought I did, but again, that's a show I haven't watched in 10 years. So
yeah,
something I could absolutely get back into.
It's definitely, you know what? Like kind of in this like little lull we have with like shows coming out and whatnot. Like it's probably worth it to go check it out again.
Is it on any streaming?
I want to say it's on Prime.
I knew I watched it. I watched it on, a long time ago. I thought it was on Netflix or something. I mean, years ago when I watched it, but
yeah, it's like I said, it's well worth watching. But yeah, all right. Well, anything else you want to know before we move on?
No. And for those listening, yes, Chuck, it says it's on Prime Video and Max.
Oh, cool. Huh. Oh yeah, because it's Warner Brothers owns the show. That's right. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there we go.
Cool. All right. So moving on, we both just kind of randomly watched the same movie. It's new on Netflix.
Didn't talk about it.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it. Just like you were like, yeah, I'm watching that. I'm like, yeah, I've been waiting for that to come out. It comes out on December 6th. And it is Subservience, starring Megan Fox. It's a Subservience. Sorry. Subservience is a 2024 science fiction thriller directed by S.K. Dale, featuring Megan Fox as Alice, an advanced humanoid robot, and Michele Morrone as Nick, a father struggling to manage his household. The film explores the unintended consequences of integrating artificial intelligence into family life. This movie is not so different than Megan.
Really isn't. And when I was watching it, I guess Megan was just kind of like at the back of my mind, like as far as not really thinking about it. But I kept thinking, this really reminds me of something. This really reminds me of something. Like, again, it doesn't trot new territory, but as I mentioned, as I've said before, when people say there are no stakes in movies because the main character's not going to die, they usually talk about the MCU. But as I say, it's not about the originality; it's about the execution. So just because I know for a fact, except obviously the last one that was murdered his character, figuratively and literally, you never think James Bond's going to die.
Right.
But those James Bond movies can be, especially things like Casino Royale and Skyfall, are great. It
Hmm.
has nothing to do with thinking he's not in peril
Right.
or he's not going to die. It's the execution of it. And that's why the other James Bond movies, for example, No Time to Die, Spectre, and
Hmm.
Quantum of Solace, they didn't execute.
Right.
And this one, it was solid execution. Like I said, there's nothing new in here. What it did do for me, at least, left me with questions where I wanted to know more about the world that
Right.
they were in,
Yeah.
because we really don't get a lot. We get things from obviously from the main character, that family's point of view, but with the whole thing of the AI robots, you know, they're doctors. They're
Hmm.
doing
Oh,
surgeries
they're doing
and things like
everything.
that.
It's not they're
They're
yeah, I
doing
mean, they're even doing menial
and
jobs like, all
right,
that.
which again, it was very that was one of those things I had questions, and so that piqued my curiosity. Even though we don't get the answers, it's like, how did when did this happen? How did all of this stuff happen so quickly? And I
Right.
just find it funny that they were doing all this, uh, high intensity work, such as being doctors performing surgeries, and as we get into the movie, they're just now being put into labor of construction labor, which
Hmm.
you would think that would be the first thing that they would get to do instead of these specialized fields,
Right.
because androids out, or not androids, but these, oh, I don't know if are they technically androids, I guess maybe,
I mean, yeah, they're
but
they're they're
yeah,
yeah, Android would be the right word. I mean, they're
right,
they're
okay.
you know they're fully
Hey,
autonomous robots with healing and sexual organs and upgrades and
yeah,
strength and all of that.
yeah, I tell you another
Heartbeats.
thing that, yeah,
That was actually
this
cool.
reminded me of
Yeah.
is Humans, uh the show that was on, I think, was it AMC a few years back, where these AI robots, they ended up, it was very similar in the sense of there was some, I didn't never finish, I just watched most of season one, but it ended up where they didn't necessarily rebel, but they actually, they went past their programming, and that's where we can lead into what happens in Subservience with Alice
Yeah.
and
I mean, look back to
getting
Alien
through.
Romulus with
Yeah.
the AI in there. The
Hmm.
half-eaten oh god, what was his name? Ian Holmes. Anyway, but no, you're absolutely right. I will say this. This movie had a very like A24 feeling to it, even though it wasn't an A24 film. But it was like you ordered an A24 film on like Wish
Timu.
or Timu. But it was good. It was still good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it's well
Yeah.
worth watching. And it kind of Nick had the vibe of the guy from Upgrade. He was kind of anti-technology. He has his own muscle car, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's all tatted up. It was so funny watching him. I was expecting his backstory to be like, dude, was he a former hitman or something?
No, right?
Because like that's the vibe I got from him, honestly,
Hmm.
with the tattoos, and then just some of the things that happen, like mostly in the beginning of the movie, like as you get to know
Yeah.
him more, you're like, okay, he wasn't a former hitman.
No,
So
he's a foreman, a construction
yeah,
foreman. But
yeah,
he's
it's a
like
former.
he's trying to be a good dad. He's trying to balance his wife who needs a heart transplant
Yeah,
and like how to like work with his crew and keep them employed when his boss is like, yeah, we're just gonna we replace them all with Sparks. And it was really, I don't know. I like I said, I think it was fun. I liked it. Is it a great movie? No. Is it worth watching? Yes. Is it 90-ish minutes of fun little escapism? 100%.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
and
106
that,
minutes. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's well worth it. It's
yeah,
XYZ Films distributed this one.
yeah. It's a solid take, and it from a rating standpoint for me, it kind of falls into that huge bucket of movies of 2024 for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are movies that I've actually rated higher that entertain me less than this.
Yeah.
And then probably not vice versa, honestly.
Right.
But so I rated it 5.5 out of 10. I thought that there were solid performances. There were unanswered questions, which were both positive and negative. Positive in the sense that I wanted to know. It piqued my curiosity about the world. And based on how it ends, no spoilers, there is they've opened the door for making a second one. I wouldn't think this movie was made for a lot of money.
No.
Even though nothing looked bad. That's not what I'm saying. But just based on what I kind of know a little bit about movies and just what I saw there, I thought they did a good job of, again, they have a truncated budget. This isn't like a Gladiator 200 million. This ain't a $50 million movie.
Right.
But I thought they did a very solid job of giving us enough to put us into the world because sometimes when you see a cheaper movie, you get taken out just because of what it is at times. Even some of these high quality or high budget movies have terrible effects.
This movie was a $4 million budget.
Yeah. So in $4 million budget, they did a fabulous job in putting things together. So, it's 5.5. It's a little bit below solid, but I still think, it's one of those movies you have
we didn't do the scores yet. We didn't do out of 10 Megan Fox is greater than Megan. So you gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Yeah.
I absolutely would suggest, take it. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
Yeah. You like that? Megan Fox is greater than Megan?
Yes.
And the M3 GAN. Anyway, I went with a 6.39. I really was digging this movie. But like these are the kind of like AI movies that I like. Kind of the AI gone bad. It's trying to get into the system. That sort of thing. It's why I'm nice I say please and thank you to all my home automations. So. But yeah, well worth watching. Definitely check it out.
Absolutely, 100%. I would suggest watching it.
So,
especially if you're into sci-fi, if you're into these type of AI movies. Yeah, take a gander at it. 90, 90 a little bit over 90 minutes of your time. Hour 40 minutes. It was actually, I think, an hour 36 or
it's
5.
It's 106 minutes.
No, I mean like taking out credits, credits, because the credits were a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, but it's like, like I don't think we can state enough. Like if you want to have a fun little afternoon when it's cold outside or it's snowy or something, worth checking out. Cool. All right. Are you ready for Dunc Prophecy? Yes. Episode 2 or episode 4. There's only 2 episodes left.
Yeah.
There's a lot of story to tell. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, out of 5. All right, class. Let's take some time to draw. What do you give this episode? What?
Let's take some time because that's exactly what it seemed like.
Yeah, that's what happened. So anyway, all right, what do you give it?
Let's draw a pretty little picture.
It looked like they were drawing sandworms at first. I like that little tease because that was in the preview and then it was in the show. Anyway, what do you rate this one out of 5?
3.94 out of 5.
Cool. I went with a 4.12, and I will tell you why. And I'm going to jump to the end because Travis Fimmell's monologue at the end of the episode is the best thing that's happened to the Dune franchise as far as Denis Villeneuve's vision of Dune has gone. It was amazing.
I will 100% agree with that.
It was so good.
Honestly, before he does that, I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I wasn't bored because there were some nice little groundwork.
There's some boring ass shit in this episode for sure.
Stuff. But when he starts on, you should have seen me perk up. Yeah, I'm just sitting on the floor, and I just like sit up and smiling the whole time because he is absolutely. Again, we've rated this show pretty well as a very solid show so far. To me, he is far and away the most interesting thing, not just because of his character, but because of how Travis, just his performance. And again, we've seen him in other things, Warcraft, which wasn't great, but obviously him as Ragnar Lothbrok in the first 4 seasons of Vikings.
Was it
And so
4 or 5?
Well, he was in 4.
Okay. Yes, you're right.
But you're absolutely right, Brian. Like this was to me the best, like the 5 minute whatever it was, and then we get to see his point of view on Iraq. Everything about that worked for me.
Yes,
like that whole scene is one of those scenes. Honestly, I could watch over again multiple times. That's how well done it was.
I may have watched it more than twice.
Just that scene.
Yes. Because like Ragnar, so when he was Ragnar, right, he gave some great monologues about like the Vikings and the Viking expansion and things like that. But like this was great because he was like, look, yes, I killed him, but I didn't kill him. I assassinated. Like, and like the way he flipped everything on Valia, and like,
you mean Syndrome?
Well, yeah. The way he flipped everything on Valia and the Harkonnens was really, really cool. And to top that off, right? Like, he made the Emperor look much, much stronger than he is for what for all of that. And then taking out the collaborators. And then finding out that like, it's not just a power that he like they are like, so I think we're going to get a Desmond Hart series after this. Like this is just conjecture, 100% on my part. But we're going to get that, and then we're going to get more Benny Gesserit later on, because I do think they're going to take whatever his power is, and they're going to turn it into the agony box. And
because they got his blood.
Yeah. And so they're going to use this as the test to find out who's a human and who's an animal, which was awesome. The other cool bit of like just Dune-ness in this episode was we learned that Sister Theodosia is a Trilaxu face dancer.
Face dance. Yeah.
And we've heard about face dancers in other Dune things. There wasn't a whole lot of face dancers. There's not face dancers in the first Dune, really. Dune Messiah, I'm sure we're going to get the face dancer who leads Paul into the trap with the stonecutter.
Yeah.
But, having seen that and then watching her switch from Griffin Harkonnen back into Theodosia was really, really cool. It was a great effect, but it was also like you kind of like, because we've never seen the face dancer's transformation before, because in the sci-fi version, of Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, he just like
there was
changes like constantly, right? But it's all off screen. You just hear a little like sound and like, it's a different actor standing there. So it was really cool to see. And it kind of reminded me very much of an American Werewolf in London, just better, like, CGI, less practical. Mm-hmm. I found that to be really, really cool. And, just that whole thing. And then the last part about the episode that was cool was Sister Tula coming out of the trance, essentially the spice trance, and having the visions of sandworms and of Shai-Hulud and Arrakis in general, and Sister Tula trying to figure out what all of this means and figure out like what kind of judgment is coming from this, and like how to deal with the tensions that she's created in the sisterhood, and also getting to see her thinking machines. Everybody's using thinking machines still, and
yeah.
you know, and Desmond Hart is trying to make sure nobody uses thinking machines anymore. I'm so excited for the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, one of the things also is, you're talking about Tula and the dreams and the nightmares these, the acolytes were having. And one of the things she said, and once you say that, I think you know where I'm going with, where she's talking with the sister Avila, and Sister Avila's like, look, we need to tell people about it. She's like, no, because if what killed Kasha is rooted in fear, then fear is the last thing we should be spreading.
Fear is the
And
mind
at the
killer.
end, yeah,
This is where the litany
I don't
will
know.
come from.
Yeah, and that's exactly. So I knew you knew where I was going with that. Going back to Desmond Hart, I agree. I've always liked the character. I love the actor, and I've liked the character. And I thought that scene, watching him play that scene, that was what I said. I really want a Desmond Hart limited series. I absolutely want a Desmond Hart.
Cool?
There's so much. Oh, that would be. I mean, it's just there's just so much you could tell from that, or tell in that story. And I have a question for you. And also, I agree with the face. I was like, this is a face. No, it's not face changer. It's what. And I had to look at it. I was like, okay, it's a face dancer. But I really like that. The pain. It's showing her the sacrifice she made because of her loyalty to Valia, and seeing because Valia, this was the most unhinged we've seen her, as the Reverend Mother.
Well, I mean,
she's always under control.
She had the folding knife ready to assassinate Desmond Hart as quickly.
And I'm talking
about
when she's speaking with her uncle.
Oh yeah, that. Oh,
and
God, when she kills him. By taking his medicine away.
Yeah, and that scene, it does. Like, it shows what she's going through, but it also at the same time, and again, the Bene Gesserit are not heroes, and again, they're protagonists in this. It and I mentioned this in the first couple episodes we reviewed. It's very similar to Penguin in the sense of, although they do believe they're doing, they're not. They are self-involved, obviously, because they think they know better, but at the same time they think they're trying to do what's best.
Right.
So, but it's similar in the way of Penguin, because they will do whatever is necessary. And why I called her Syndrome, I mean, I know you know this, but watching that, she's planning this assassination of Emperor Carino so she can save him. And when she says that, I was like, oh, this is Syndrome here, huh?
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Syndrome from The Incredibles. So I did like that scene, because it shows that despite I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, that it shows both sides of this character. Like, it shows that it absolutely shows her imperfections, not just in the sense of she thinks she knows, but just she is human, and being human, as much as she can control on the outside, there's still a storm on the inside, a storm of resentment of my family didn't think, I was better than my family and they abandoned me, or, Griffin was the only one on my level, which, what does that say about what she thinks about Tula? Which, I mean, we've already seen some of the stuff she called out Tula with, despite the things that Tula did, which were greater sacrifices than her.
Oh yeah.
So I did like seeing that version of her, because it shows that she doesn't have it all together, and she is fallible, because obviously, again, humans, and still going, even as much as I like that, nothing took away from the thunder of Desmond Hart. And I will continue to bang on that drum.
Jumping back to Desmond, right, and the whole fear-based thing. All right, I'm just the litany against fear. It reads as, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings on total obliteration. So this is what Desmond is doing. He's burning them from the inside out, right? So like, this is how they're going to combat this. This like Tula or Valia or one of them, is going to recite this at some point, and they're going to come through the other side. Okay, so let me finish. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. This will be their weapon against Desmond Hart to keep him from literally taking their fear and burning them from the inside out with it.
Yes.
And it's
100%.
Again, conjecture, right? I didn't watch the preview. I just watched Behind the Veil. But that would be so cool if this is like how they do it, how they introduce the litany. And, and then maybe we will get some of those other Bene Gesserit things, and they're not just like Kung Fu nuns.
Kung Fu nuns.
So
yeah, and again, it's one of those things that if you truly are interested in, the makeup of a human being is from a psychological standpoint, that litany, as far as, fictional litanies that can translate into reality go, that might be the greatest one that I've read. And again, there's some great stuff also in Star Wars about, I don't believe it. That's why you fail.
Right.
But the fear is the mind killer is such a powerful, you can call it, yes, it's from a fictional world. But as far as relating it to true real life stuff that we go through, there aren't many, lines in fiction that are that can top that as far as being useful in thinking about an everyday life.
Right.
And I love it. And I think when she said that about this being fear, that was the first thing that popped in my head. This is where we're going to get the genesis of, the fear is the mind killer litany.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I just see that as something that will hopefully come to pass. The other thing is the girl who woke up was
Lila.
Yeah. So she's got the blue eyes now because she went through the spice trance. So she's like, are they going to send her to Arrakis? And is this the is this the first 20,000 years early laying the seeds for Muad'Dib? Will she be the first Fremen Reverend Mother?
Oh, I don't know. Well, so the other thing is that Michaela also has the blue eyes.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if we get much from her story yet. We haven't gotten much from her as far as, there's very little on her. And again, we know what Lila went through. But yeah, I'm curious to see where, again, like you said, we only have 2 episodes.
Yeah.
There is a ton of stuff that they have to wrap up.
I'm hoping these are just like anthologies. They just continue to visit Dune, revisit it.
I would really like shows like this that don't necessarily wrap up everything, but wrap up the important parts of a series. But if it's an anthology, yes, you can leave some threads dangling that can. It's not necessarily a direct sequel, or some of it which is answered in a follow-up, a companion, I guess you would say, sequel series, which is not a direct follow-up, but can play with some of the characters that are in there or whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot to wrap up. I'm liking where this is going. I'm excited for these last 2 episodes to see what we get and how it relates to some of the things we already know about the Dune world.
Right.
Very interested to see. Very, very. And again, they've done well, Max. You've done well with the Penguin, and I kept not expecting, but hoping that you didn't drop the ball. And so far, they've done a very good job with this.
I mean,
and
look at
I don't
House
think they're
of the
going to
Dragon, right? House of the Dragon's been a great prequel. This has been a great prequel. We've got A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms coming out in just a few months. About Duncan the Tall. and
Oh,
I
that's
think,
coming up soon. Yeah.
oh, sorry, late 2025, my bad. So in about
Oh,
a
it's
year.
late 20. I
Yeah,
thought it
I thought
was
it was
like
early
summer
2025
or
too. Um, but like this is the type of thing. It's like let's just do anthology series for these like, these IPs that have just rich, deep stories to tell. And just adapt them. Like even if it is the Brian Herbert shit, like this has been good.
yes, it's been very good. Yes, it's been it's one of those I didn't know what to expect, which sometimes is good because it's you get pleasantly surprised.
Yep.
Same thing with Penguin. Although I expected a little bit less from Penguin, so I was even more so as if I had low expectations. So for that one, lower expectations. This one I didn't really have any. I don't believe. It was just one of
I
those.
was afraid to watch
I
it. I mean,
With Hollywood the way it
yeah.
is, I was thinking they were going to go Hollywood,
Yeah.
and so far I've been pleasantly surprised, and
Well, it's
we
hard to
don't
make a
get
woke, quote, woke show when it's about a bunch of karate nuns. So,
uh
they would have had to
my
go
dear
the other,
Brian.
they would have had to go the other way and just make the Benny Gesserit all men.
Well, I would say you're underestimating the power
Oh,
of
yeah.
bad Hollywood.
No, you're right. You're right. Anyway,
But
all
yeah,
right.
I've liked this so far. So
Same. All right, let's move on to our last bit. Superman. So super slash man. So Superman, the Christoper Reeve story. Man, what a good documentary, right? A lot of stuff like we knew. Like there's a lot of stuff we knew. I think there's a lot of stuff because the family is so private and his children are still pretty private outside of their activism. You know, there was just there was a lot, and it was great to hear his voice, both pre and post accident, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
right. Yeah. And it's just so crazy that thinking about it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
It does not seem, in one regard, it doesn't seem like that. And then another regard, it's like, didn't I just see him on the show? No, that show was Smallville.
Yeah.
That was what
So
I saw him in.
that was the last thing he did. He was Dr. Virgil Swan, and I think it was season 4 of Smallville. And he is the one who introduced Clark to Clark being Kal-El and the concept of Krypton on Smallville. And it was so cool. It was so great to see him. It was him passing, because Smallville had been on for a little while, and it was him literally passing the torch to Tom Welling as the next Superman. And then the CW let us down. The WB, sorry, and what became the CW let us down.
This is one of this I believe it came out in was it this summer or early
It was
fall where
earlier.
this was
It was
at?
earlier this year in September. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
The actual release date. I apologize. Let me go through this. The release date was Sundance, January 19th of this year. It was released in the United States wide because it got distribution at Sundance on September 21st, and it was released in the United Kingdom on November 1st. It's 104 minutes long, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers and Fathom Events. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
because I again, Superman is this is one of those seminal movies, Superman and Superman 2, that I grew up on. I remember I had the Superman, like the 12-inch doll with and this was a doll, more of a doll instead of an action figure. It had the clothing,
Like your
the
Buffy
cape.
doll?
No, Buffy's an action figure. It's fully posable. My Superman doll was like moderately, but not really posable.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, this was one of those things that I grew up on, and so much of the stuff I knew this was coming out. It came out Saturday at 8 p.m. It's been on. You've been able to purchase it on any of the Amazon
Yeah, for
Fandango
for a
platforms,
little
whatever,
while.
for a couple weeks or a month or so. But when I saw that it was coming out, I ended up watching the first two Superman movies, and again, it's one of those movies that so many of the quotes in those movies, again, it reminds me of my dad and the stuff that we bonded over movies and sports.
Hmm.
Obviously, he was my coach, so I was just watching, especially Superman 2. Superman 2 is to me is I like Superman 2 better than the first Superman, and just with Zod and everything and all of these things. So I watched those first two, and I hadn't watched the first two Superman movies in years.
Hmm.
So that was my primer before watching this. So yeah, all of that is fresh in my mind, and then seeing his story, Christoper Reeve story before, and how he got the role, and just again some of the stuff I didn't know as for how tough his dad was on him, what his dad thought of him getting this
Oh yeah.
role of Superman, because his
Nobody
dad was
wanted him to take the role.
nope, it's lowbrow and all this stuff because again, he was big into plays, Broadway and stuff, which was funny. I really like how they had what's his name? What was the other? Jeff. I almost said Jeff Foxworthy, but what is that? He was in Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels, and how they were
Yeah.
good friends,
Well, and with him and Robin Williams.
and Robin Williams. Oh man, and who was that said if they thought that if Christopher Reeve was still alive, Williams would be because of how they played off each other. And
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that I mean, I don't
I'm
know.
trying to
I don't
think of who
remember
that
who
was.
said it, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and I always find fascination with not always, but I do tend to find fascination when you see these because I'm one of those. I've never been enthralled with Hollywood or people that are famous. I just never have been, even as a kid, even athletes that I liked watching on TV when I met. But it was one of those things, and with documentaries that are done right and actually delve into the person, it shows that it's a reminder to people. It should be a reminder to people that you know what, they're just people too. Just like I was mentioning with Valia as a Reverend Mother. She's a human. She's a person. Yes, she has better ability than the focus, but she is still human and still fallible. And I think to me, documentary should be, yes, if you want to know more about the person, but also to take people from pedestals in the sense of thinking that they're better or it, going to the level of just reminding you like this is a person, man. When they're not a character that they play. And you can say the same thing with athletes, when and I can be guilty of it in the sense of, having conversations with people. I don't put this stuff online or, I wouldn't yell this at a person. But like, when somebody sucks or somebody does or does something stupid, I mean, unless you're doing just heinous stuff or it's a pattern, if you do something that's not worthy because it's because you're a person. And Christopher Reeve,
Hmm.
he was a human being, and we as especially people back then saw him as this larger than life icon of his fame went from basically zero to on top of the world
Oh yeah, I mean, he was unknown.
in the span such a short amount of time. And I like when they were talking about what all these people they were looking at for Superman. And you've said this before when we've talked about potential castings for different things over the years. Like you tend to go toward, and I tend to agree. Sometimes it just depends on the role, but a lot of times I know you've mentioned like, hey, no, they should get an unknown for this
Hmm.
because of A, B, and C. And that's what the producers were looking for. Because I know they mentioned that Robert Redford, he was mentioned, but he turned it down. A couple other people like Neil Diamond wanted to, which, okay. Neil Diamond is Clark Kent Superman. That would have been, um,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway,
pass. No, you're right. Like, him being unknown, and then the way he used his platform. I really appreciated the way he talked about acting and how he wanted to be able to do, the things that his characters could do, so it looked more real. Which led to him falling in love with the sport of equestrian, and which ultimately led to his paralysis and death. But it was the way, it was the relationship with his wife Dana, and how she really saved him, like, after the accident. Like, he wanted to, he talked to her about, like, just let me go, and she said, if you fight, I'll fight. And if he had just given up in that moment, the world would have been a much worse place, because he
yeah.
dedicated his life to helping people who were able to, he's like, through the R&D of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, they have helped people walk, people who were told they'll never walk again. They have jumped, because of him, they have jumped the technology to help para and quadriplegics greatly. And without that, who knows what wouldn't have happened, and how many lives he saved by
Hmm.
deciding to stick around and fight. And I know we are down on the celebrity, as a whole right now.
Hmm.
And this is a man who transcended that, because he didn't want to be some super famous guy. He was actively like cautioned not to take the Superman role. Now, Superman 4 came and went, so we'll leave that where it is. But he was able to do some really great things by all stretches. The three children he's had, they've all grown up to be very good people, who love their moms and dad greatly. There's Alexandra, Matthew, and Will. And, Will's story is heartbreaking, right? Like, he was only 13. I didn't realize Dana was 44 when she died in 2006. Just 2 years after Christopher. He died on October 9th of 2004, and she died on March. So not even 2 years. And he also lost his grandmother in that time. And he was left as an orphan at 13 years old. So sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to what you said about the thing, because I know there was a doctor on there where they said he was like a quarter of an inch or something along the lines to the left, and he would have been dead instantly. Quarter of an inch to the right, and it would have just been a, just funny but embarrassing
Hmm.
accident, and he would have just gotten up from it. And it's, I'm paraphrasing here in the sense of it's a quote. It's like it's not what happens to us, but what we decide to do about that. And this perfectly encompasses what Christopher Reeve went through because, as you
Hmm.
said, Dana also, and this he said that this is when she said, "I'll back your play. Basically, I'll back whatever you do, but just so you know, you're still you. He said he said that right there is what gave him the that strength he needed to fight because again, one of the scariest things I would think for anyone is to be wholly dependent from a physical standpoint on other people. And then you add to the fact of how active he was.
Hmm.
He wasn't just in equestrian, he's ice skiing or
Oh
ice
yeah, he
skating.
was a
He's,
pilot. He
skiing, a
sailed.
pilot,
Yeah.
all of this stuff. One of the more active people, like again, some of the stuff I knew, but just seeing it encapsulated in a documentary
He
on
was
this
like Tom
guy's
Cruise
life and
before
what he
Tom
did.
Cruise. As far as
Yes,
being
that's
active
actually,
and yeah.
yes. And then to have that just completely be dependent on someone else, never being able to walk the grounds of his house by
Hmm.
himself or just sit alone or
I mean, he couldn't even
all
breathe
of
by
this.
himself.
No,
It was,
no.
yeah.
And then to do what he did to affect the world in the way he did afterwards, it's it's why again, like you said, we get down on celebrities and there's every reason for us to be, especially with some of the things that have come out with certain people.
Hmm.
But at the same point, and I say this a lot when I'm watching sports, that when we're watching games, and then we see a little, segment on this athlete that did X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's this fabulous stuff that you don't hear about, and because of the news, again, because of the way people are, negative news sells more than positive
Oh
news.
yeah.
And I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say that as much as I lambaste a lot of these people, there's a lot of other ones that are doing so much stuff that we don't know about. And a lot of times it's just for their communities. It's like what Christopher Reeve did is all encompassing of the world. What some of these other people are doing, might be affecting the world in a different way because they might affect the lives of one person, and that person could go in turn affect the lives. And it's that whole, the butterfly effect or the not the butterfly effect, but just that getting that snowball rolling downhill of you positively affect someone, two or three people's lives. Each of them positively affects three or four people's, and you continue to get that ball. That's how things become better. It's not going to become better overnight. It's going to become better with people like Christopher Reeve, who takes, he's a human being. He makes mistakes, and just like all of us, but who can take something as debilitating as being a prisoner in a chair in the physical sense, not necessarily the because he did not let that be his
Right.
prison from a emotional level, from a level of affecting the world when he very well could have.
Hmm.
And that's what I get out of this documentary is it's I try to remind myself this a lot because when we make, just cut that whole first world problems thing. I
Right.
try to remember that there are people as many of the problems as, yeah, I don't have many, but when I have a problem or something that's frustrating, I try to remind myself, look at people around the world. And you don't even have to look at people around the world. Look at people that aren't in the physical health that I'm in,
Right.
or that that can do the things that I can do. it, you know, it's understandable why we complain, but we also have to get right and remind ourselves there are people in a lot worse situations,
Hmm.
and sometimes those people do extraordinary things in those situations that, if you look at it on the surface, are far worse than our own.
Right.
And that's what Christopher Reeve did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that sums it up. Okay. So out of 10, the one true Man of Steel, what do you give this?
8 out of 10, highly recommend. Oh, that rhyme. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Bars.
I went with a 7.89 out of 10. I thought it was great. There was a lot of stuff that like we'd seen before, but like obviously like there's nothing new when it comes to that. But the things that were added were really great, and it was nice to see his kids so active in the production of this as well, or at least being very open and honest about their dad in the interviews.
Yes,
So
agreed.
All right. Well, on that note, anything you want to add?
No, all I can say is just I'd highly recommend that. Dune Prophecy again. Going back a little bit to the fictional stuff. Subservience again. Just a nice little hour, 35 minutes of your time of just escapism, pure escapism.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Nice. Yeah, I got nothing. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the patience in our troubling time this past week that, isn't really that troubling. It was just kind of an annoyance. But we will see you next week with the penultimate episode of Dune and some other cool stuff. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.
The Infamous Podcast is recorded in Kings Mills, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. You can find new episodes every Sunday on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, our website, or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. This show is hosted by Darryl Jasper and me, Brian Tudor. To find more information about the show, visit us at infamouspodcast.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Infamous Podcast to keep up with the show. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/infamouspodcast. We have some great rewards for our patrons and are looking for help to grow the show to bring you more of the content you want to hear. Music for this podcast is provided by Michael Henry from meetmichaelhenry.com. So, whenever you're listening to us, have a great day, night, evening, weekend, whenever it is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.